Hello everyone, my name is Mayo Kumalemika. I'm your instructor for Blender tutorials and the late XR Blender training. Okay, so this is the lesson 2. So you know we had lesson 1 yesterday, so this is lesson 2, and without much ado, let's dive in. Okay, so I have Blender opened up here. And to make this splash screen, this is called the splash screen. Okay, so to make this splash screen disappear, you can just click on it or you click outside. Alright, so this is our basic default scene. Yeah, whenever you open Blender, your default scene always looks like this. Okay, so in this class today, what we'll be doing, we'll be going through the object types. Last time we met, we discussed the interface, the navigation of the interface, and I showed you some basic settings, the environment, everything. Some basic views. We have the solid view, the material view, and the wireframe, and also the rendered. Okay, so just so you know, when you're working, you'll most likely be working in the most likely will be working in the solid view, because when you go to rendered view, especially for systems that don't have higher specifications, your Blender will likely be lagging and becoming slow, so you really don't want that, and it can be a little bit frustrating. So just go into solid view and you'll be able to see objects, and if you would like to see behind the object or you want to see through the object, you can go into wireframe. Okay, and wireframe, just like the name implies, it just turns the whole view into a wireframe. Alright, okay, so in today's class, by the end of the class, we'll be having a project. We'll be recreating what you see here is a basic swan bottle. Yeah, this is the actual bottle. So we'll be recreating it. We won't be texturing it in this class, but we'll just be creating the basic shape, something like this. And I'll be showing you some 2 methods of doing that, and we'll learn some shortcut keys and some tricks and tips in Blender of modeling. Okay, for modeling rather. All right, so let's dive in. Okay, so in Blender, before we begin the exercise, I'll just quickly run through object types and basic way of manipulating objects. Right, object types, basic way of manipulating. We talk about the edges, faces, and vertices, and some basic shortcuts, and some basic tools for editing. Okay, so when you have an object in your Blender, a mesh, this object is called a mesh object. Basically any object that has a shape, a basic shape that has a vertex, a face, and an edge, is a mesh object. Okay, so this object is a mesh object. So whenever you have a mesh object added to your scene, by default it will be in object mode. Okay, and in object mode you can't really do much tweaking to the object, because what modeling is all about, it's all about tweaking and just tweaking, adjusting different things. Say you want to create I don't know, maybe a shoebox or a mobile phone, for example. What do? What you have is a cube. You just basically, I don't know, scale it. If you, let's say for example a mobile phone, you want to scale it on the Z-axis, you want to scale it on the X-axis. Now it has a basic shape of a mobile phone, but it still doesn't really look like a mobile. It just looks like a box. Understand? So what we do, that's the reason why we need edit mode. Okay, so what we have here is object mode, and how you can simply know that is you can come over here where the mouse is right now. It's showing as object mode, but if you click the drop down, you can actually see all the possible modes that you can be in. But for now, we'll be talking majorly on object and edit mode. Okay, in later classes we might touch a bit on the rest, but for now we'll be focusing majorly on object and edit mode. Okay, so give me a second, let me turn on the screencast key so you can see exactly what I'm pressing on my keyboard. Okay, and all right. Okay, so that's good. Yeah, I think we're good now. Alright, so you'll be able to see everything I'm pressing on the side of the keyboard here where this mouse is. So whenever I click, left click, right click, and middle click, middle mouse, the mouse will click, and any keyboard shortcut I press. Okay, good. So why do we like I said, the reason why we need the edit mode is so that we can have more control to edit and manipulate our objects. And this rule basically follows almost all 3D modeling softwares. Okay, so the same rule generally applies. There will be an edit mode, and when you're in edit mode, there are 3 things you need to know. But first of all, to get into edit mode, there are 2 ways to do that. You can come up here, click the drop down, and select edit mode while you have the object that you want to go into edit mode selected. Okay, so you select this object, and let's say it's not selected, you can just click with the left mouse button to select it, then you click the drop down and go to edit mode. Alright, and now you're in edit mode. That's one way to do it. The other way, the shortcut key, which I would suggest you try to get familiar with, is to press the tab button. It will toggle between the object mode and the edit mode. Tab will toggle into object and edit mode. Okay, in and out of object and edit mode. Alright, so now we're in the edit mode, and in the edit mode you notice that there's a slight difference. Like when I was in the object mode and I go back to the edit mode, it looks as if the edges are a bit drawn out with a pencil or something. It looks somewhat cartoonish. Alright, and that's to show us that there are the ways of which we can manipulate this. And earlier I mentioned 3 things. I said there are vertices, I said there are edges, and there are faces. Alright, and in any mesh object, this is common to all of them. What are vertices? Let me take us back to elementary school or secondary school mathematics. Vertices or vertex, a vertex basically is a point, like a single point where two or more lines join together. Okay, where 2 or more edges specifically join together. And an edge, like the name implies, simply like the name implies, is like the, like a knife edge, the edge of any shape, basically the sharp edge. Alright, now these are edges. I'm selecting the edges, and to do that you can say I'm just using the left mouse button to just click once to select the edges, right? So I'm selecting these are what edges are. And lastly, the faces. A face, literally like the name implies, is the flat surface of any shape or whatsoever. A face, this is a face, this is a face, this is another face, and any cube-like shape will have 6 faces. Okay, so this has 6 faces. All right. Yesterday I briefly mentioned that if you want to select everything in your scene, you tap A, right? And likewise in object mode, if you want to select all the faces, edges, everything, you tap A. All right, to select everything at the same time. Now you notice that when I wanted to select face, I had to come here to click on one of these 3 boxes here. Now to work in face select mode, you select, if what you are trying to manipulate is just the face, you come here and select face. And if you're not sure which is which, you can just hover your mouse over it. It will bring a small description. Now we have your face select. Okay, now if you want to manipulate edge, if you want to change edge, tweak the edges, you can come here, edge select mode. And likewise for the vertices, so you can come here to drop down and tell you it's a vertex select mode. Okay, and really, why you'll be wondering, why are we so particular about this? When you want to, okay, say for example, I want to create a I don't know, maybe I want to make a pyramid, for example, right? What do you think will need to happen to this object, this phone looking object, to turn into a pyramid? Okay, you'll be right if you say that it needs to become more shrunken on its longer side. Okay, and one other thing that you need to have in mind is axis basically. So what's that means, in your graph book, taking us back to our mathematics, in your graph book, we have the x and y axis. That's for a 2D plane, a 2-dimensional plane, right? But in the 3D world, we have a 3rd axis, and that's the z axis, and that axis is what brings volume to any object. Okay, so you to know which axis is which, you can see a small a slim green line here and a slim red line, and the reference is you can follow the reference here. Okay, so the green one is the y-axis, the red one is the x-axis, and the blue one is the z-axis. Now the blue one is not shown. You can actually display it, but you really will not. If you once you have your two axes, you can actually make out the green one. You get used to it, honestly, trust me. So now if I wanted to turn this into a pyramid, what will I do? I'll need to shrink this on the x-axis to make it like a square, okay, and then I'll need to make it taller. Okay, that's to make it taller on the z-axis. All right, remember this, the vertical axis is the z-axis. Okay, to make it taller on the z-axis, and then I'll need to find a way to make all the points to the top to converge at a single point. All right, so how do you do that? So to do that, I can just select everything. Let me select everything, and I briefly mentioned yesterday that to transform something, there are three ways to transform. Okay, transforms, you can actually move the object, or you can move anything. That's one way of transforming. You can scale, and then you can rotate, and this is generally how you transform anything in Blender and in most other 3D software. Okay, you can move, remember, move, scale, or rotate, and all of those have shortcut keys too. Okay, so say I want to move this from point A to point B. The shortcut key for that is grab. That is G. Okay, G for grab. So you just tap G, okay, and you can notice that it's following my mouse anywhere my mouse is. And to snap out of that, you can either press escape or you right click on your mouse button. Okay, so but if you want to specifically move this, let's say I want to move this only on this red line, okay, I don't want it to fall out of line or to move it randomly, you can come up here, and select this arrow pointing in all directions symbol. Is the symbol for move, and it will bring up your move gizmo. Okay, it will bring up your transform gizmo. So I can click on that. I can see this arrow cardinal points appeared on my object. Okay, so if I want to move this, I can just click. If I want to move it specifically on a single axis, I can just click the arrow that corresponds to that axis and drag it all around. And I can see that it's moving, okay, or it's moving only on that axis. And you will know that because the red, if you notice, the red line kind of highlights itself whenever you are constrained to that red line, okay, or any particular axis for that matter. So even if I'm moving on z-axis, you see a blue line kind of highlights and becomes brighter to show that you are moving only on that particular axis. All right, now what we want to do is not to move it, we want to actually scale it to reduce its size on a particular axis. So we want to reduce its size on the x-axis. And how do you do that? Like similarly, there are two ways to do that. You can come here and click the scale button, and if you don't know which icon is the scale, there are two. You can actually increase this panel by dragging it out, or you just I'll show you the shortcut key. You can increase the panel, drag it out, or you just hover your mouse over it to bring out the option. Yeah, exactly, like this is scale. So you can just click on the scale. I noticed that the gizmo, the transform gizmo, changed its shape. It no longer has an arrow end. It has like a box-like end. Okay, so if you want to move on the x-axis, for example, if you want to scale on the x-axis, the same rule applies. You just click the axis that you want to scale on, and which is the x-axis. And I know the x-axis is red because you can, if you don't know that, you can actually follow the reference here. Okay, so when I'm moving, the reference changes to know which axis I'm on. Okay, so let me select everything again. All right, so I can now scale everything on the x-axis to make it look a little bit more like a square, or like a cube, basically, only a flattened cube. All right, so what else do we need to do to make this look like a pyramid? We need to increase its height. Okay, so we can scale it on the z-axis. All right, so we'll do the same thing. straight on the Z axis to make it look like exactly like a cube. Excellent. All right, and lastly, the last thing we need to do to make this look like a pyramid is we need to find a way to make this face, okay, I just selected the face, everything to converge at a point. Now you can go to edge select mode and start looking for a way to let's go back to the move tool to start moving this. Yes, you flatten this, you do this, and then you select another edge here and you try to bring everything to the center and do this again. You can see it looks a little bit like a pyramid, but it's not very perfect, and there's still a flat surface here. And you can do that actually, but it will be very time consuming, very tasking, and of course it's not perfect. Everything is there's still a bit of square, rectangle shape up there. So let me Ctrl Z is to undo, so let me undo everything we've done. Okay, and there's a simpler way to do this. All you have to do is you can go into face select mode and select the top face, and then there's a shortcut key that merges everything together at a point. All right, it brings everything together, it merges everything at a point, and like the name implies, the shortcut is called merge, and the shortcut key for that is M. So you can just tap M, it will bring out a small option for you to select. Now there are different ways of doing this as per the options in the selection, and this is, if you read this, it can either merge it at the center, merge it at the cursor, or collapse everything, or you can merge it by distance. Now I'm going to explain everything here. All right, so before I explain what this is, I need to explain something first. So let me explain that. What is a cursor? Okay, if you notice, there's a bullseye looking thing here at the center of my object, and that's not an accident. Actually, it's actually the cursor of the in Blender, and you can actually move the cursor anywhere by just pressing Shift and right clicking anywhere in the scene. The cursor will snap to wherever you right click to. Right click, not left click. Shift, hold Shift and right click anywhere. And why is this important? If, say for example, let me go back to object mode so you understand more, or I can even stay here. If you want to add hold on, if you want to add something to your scene, okay, bear in mind, if you want to add anything, the shortcut key is Shift A. I'll explain that briefly. Shortcut key is Shift A, alright, to add anything to your scene. If you want to add anything to your scene, okay, whatever you add to your scene will be added to the point of this cursor. So have that in mind. It will be added to the point of this cursor, and that's why you like to specify wherever your cursor is. So let's say for example I want to add a sphere to the top of this this cube. Now I'll just snap the cursor to this point. Now there are a few ways to snap the cursor to specific points. You can just, like I said, Shift and right click, or a shortcut key for that too, and that shortcut key is Shift S. It will bring out options. Okay, let me do that again. Shift S. You want to hold the S, okay, you want to hold that down so that to keep this the options active. So you can now go and select whichever option. So there are different options here. Selection to grid, cursor. There are ones that pertain to the cursor or ones that pertain to the selection. That's what you have selected. Okay, pardon. So you can snap the cursor to the grid, and if you're wondering what is the grid is this graph looking lines. Is for reference. Those lines are for reference for you to measure, for you to use your eyeball to measure wherever you are. So but just by looking at the grid and looking at this object, I can know for certain that this cube is 2 units long, and if you want to know on the whichever axis, you know that it's a little short of 2 units tall. Okay, so that's the point of the grid. You can just, it's basically exactly like a graph sheet, exactly what the graph sheet does. Okay, as simple as that. All right, so let me go like I said, to merge everything. Let's go back to merge, to merge, and that shortcut key is M. Tap M to merge. What you want to do to make this look like a pyramid is going to merge everything at the center. Okay, so I can it has brought out the option here, merge at center. So you can just click that and you can see that everything is now a pyramid. We've created a pyramid simply. All right, now we couldn't have done this in object mode, because object mode, when you're in object mode, you don't have access to your vertices, your edges, and your faces. Okay, you don't have access to that. You can see how I'm selecting individual faces of this in edit mode. If I'm to go back to object mode, that's pressing tab to snap into object mode. All right, you will even notice that in your tool shelf, bear in mind what the icons here, this icon right here on the side is called the tool shelf. So your tools have reduced. Let me go back to the object mode. You see that the tools are significantly increased. There are more options here, but when you go to object mode, the tools are reduced. So you can't really view, you can't really edit, you can't really have full control over your mesh in object mode. Okay, all right, so that's the major difference between object mode and edit mode. Okay, so let me delete everything in my scene so that we can have a fresh view and an empty scene, right? And to do that, I select everything and delete. Now I will explain. If you notice that these weird looking objects are different from the cube that we started with, I'll explain that shortly. So let me delete everything. Okay, now when you're in Blender and you want to work, you want to model anything, what you will likely want to start with is a mesh. Okay, so a mesh, and I told you this cursor key, whatever you add to your scene will appear at this cursor key, but it's good practice to have your cursor at the center of your scene. How will you know the center? Like in the graph sheet illustration, center is wherever you have your x to be 0, your y to be 0, everything. It's the point at which everything intersects, and that's the center of everything. 0, 0, 0 in coordinate system. Okay, so to do that, you can either try to want to click, but you will never really, trust me, as if you zoom in, you will never really get the center. And there's another shortcut key for that. Shift C will automatically center your cursor to the center. Okay, Shift C, so it's automatically centered everything. Please take note of these shortcut keys. You'll likely be they will likely be something you use often, because it's to make your workflow faster. Okay, all right, to add anything in Blender, like I said, the add menu is Shift A to bring out the add menu, and you can see it's titled add, and there are different options of things you can add to your scene. Now there's another way to do this. You can come up here and click the add, and if just so you know, if you don't know the shortcut key for something but you actually know where it is here, you can hover your mouse over it to display the shortcut key. You can see it's showing you the shortcut for add. Okay, so Shift A, or you can click here and try to navigate to whatever you want to add. Okay, so let me briefly explain the major types of objects we have here, because there are different kind of objects, and because there are different kind of objects, different rules apply to them. Say for example, there are some if a mesh object and only a mesh object has vertices, faces, and edges that you can manipulate. All right, other kind of objects have different things. There's a camera object, and the camera object is exactly like the name implies. It's a camera. It's just, you can snap with the camera, you can record with the camera. That's a camera object. They are light objects, and those light objects, what they do is they add illumination, exactly what a light does. Exactly. Just imagine this like a real world. Okay, so those are different types of objects, and because they are different types of objects, they have different rules that applies to them. So let me add a mesh object. A mesh object is basically any mesh that has face. I said earlier, that has face, vertices, and edges, right? Now, if you want to model anything in Blender or even in any 3D software, it's good practice to actually understand that in the basic world, every object is based off of one of three things: either a cube, a sphere, or a cube, a sphere, or a cylinder. Okay, so think even the human body, like think of your arm, for example. It's based off of a cylinder. It's based off of the manipulation of a cylinder. You edit the cylinder, scale some parts, reduce some, and you have a human arm. I know it sounds a little bit abstract, but that's actually modeling what you should have at the back of your mind when you're modeling anything. So take for example the bottle that we wanted, that will be our exercise for today. This bottle here. you can see that what shape does this closely resemble? It resembles a cylinder. And to make your workflow faster, Blender has already made that very easy to add. So if you press Shift A now in mesh, you can add, there are some default mesh shapes that you can add. There's a plane, you can add a plane. A plane is just a 2D face, like the name implies, literally a plane. Or a cube, we have a circle. A circle is also a 2D shape. A sphere, a UV sphere, an icosphere, a cylinder, a cone, a torus. A torus looks like a donut. Okay, this is how it looks like when I add it. Let me delete that. To delete this X, okay, so let me go back to add. So basically these are the basic shape. This you might not see this in your Blender. They appear in my Blender because I have enabled them the add-on. It's not really a big deal actually. It's not. It's just some already default shapes that have been created, and it's like a plugin that I added. All right, so it's don't get worked up if you don't have any of this. Okay, but what you will have anyway is all the grid, the monkey head. Monkey head is also a default shape that has been created in Blender. All right, so in later class we'll be talking about this curve shape because there's a thing or two about it, but this is another type of object, a mesh object, a curve object. What we have in the initial scene is a camera. Okay, this is how a camera looks like. Okay, if you notice, there's no edit mode of a camera. If you tap 1 million times, it doesn't snap into any edit mode, because there's literally nothing you can edit on a camera, like in the shape wise. What you can edit is the features of the camera. Say things like the focal length, like a typical camera, a focal length, aperture, depth of field, all those kind of things, and you do that in the properties panel. Okay, I discussed about the properties panel in the previous class. All right, so this is a camera. Let me delete it again and add something else. So this is a camera, and what I had the other time was light, and the different types of lights. Okay, there's a point light, sunlight, but the general idea is all of them illuminate. So don't worry, we'll get into it's a class dedicated to lights and cameras, so we'll have full in-depth. Also empty is just basically, like the name implies, it's an empty. It doesn't show up in your scene. It's just like a point. It's an empty. We would be talking more about this, but for this class we don't really need to. It's beyond the scope of this particular class. Probably in later classes we'll be discussing about this in depth. Okay, so all right, so that's it about the admin. There are a few other things that we'll still be discussing in later classes, but for this class, the only thing we really need to know is the mesh. Okay, and I said don't forget the transform. To transform anything, there are three different ways of transforming. That's by rotating, by scaling, and by moving. I told you to move. You can either come here and select this. Okay, don't worry about the way this is the two shape is arranged. You can just manipulate that easily. You can select the move here. Now I notice that nothing is selected. That's because I have nothing in my scene. Let me add a cube. Okay, so that I'll have something in our scene. There's a cube, all right, and you can see the gizmo here at the center of the cube, so I can transform it. Okay, that's the move. And scale, and sorry, rotate here. Rotate is R. Shortcut key for rotate is R. And if you want to rotate anything, you can just come here and click this to specify your rotation. Say if you want to rotate on about the axis. Now rotation is a little bit tricky because you're not rotating on something, you're rotating about a particular axis. Okay, you're not rotating on an axis, you're rotating about an axis. So to get your reference, of course the reference is here. If you want to rotate about the x-axis, that's the red line here, you can just click on the arc that corresponds, and it's rotating specifically on that axis. Similarly for any other axis, and the same rule applies. Okay, now that's just the three basic transforms you will ever need to be using when modeling. That's the move, the scale, and the rotate. And the shortcut key for rotate, I said, is R, right? So if I press R, by default it will rotate around relative to where I'm facing. Okay, relative to the angle at which I'm observing this. But if you want to rotate specifically, I told you yesterday that to exclude a particular axis or to constrain to a particular axis, you just tap the name of the axis and you type in the number of the figure for which you want to transform to. So say if you want to move this now, for example, I told you the shortcut key for that is grab G, then you move on. If you want to constrain it to, let's say, the y-axis, that's the green line, just type Y and it moves only on that. Okay, so if you want to move this like 200 units to one side, you just type 200 units. Okay, yeah, it's out of the camera's view, so let me zoom out, grab Y, okay, and just say 10 units, for example, 10. All right, now it's moving on the positive y-axis, and the negative is obviously the opposite direction. So you can actually, if you want to specifically move to the opposite direction, just type minus on your keyboard. All right, good, and you've done that. Let me undo to bring everything back to center. Notice that even though the gizmo around this is still the rotate gizmo, I can still perform all the grab option or the scale option, which is S. S is to scale. Okay, so the gizmo is just for visualization, and sometimes you might not even need the gizmo to be appeared here. If you don't want it to appear, you can just click something else, or I don't know, you likely, yeah, exactly, just click out, or you double click on the icon again. So the gizmo does, you don't really, if you're using shortcut keys, you might not really ever bother with the gizmo. Okay, all right, so moving on. Remember, what we're trying to create is this water bottle. What we're trying to create is water bottle. So if you notice, a water bottle most likely resembles a cylinder, right? A cylinder, and what we have here is a cube, so we don't need the cube. You can just delete the cube. Let me actually select move gizmo. All right, so we can delete the cube because we don't need the cube, and we'll add in a cylinder. Go to mesh. Remember, cylinder is a mesh. Sorry, go to mesh and you scroll, look for the cylinder. This is the cylinder here, so we're adding the cylinder. All right, and you'll be wondering, okay, how do we turn our cylinder into this? So to go into, let's go into orthographic view. That's well, you can press 1 to go into the front view. Okay, so now let's go into edit mode. I told you edit mode is where we'll be modeling from to give us full control of the shape. Okay, so go on tab to go to edit mode. I notice what to edit this, we need to what we need to change about this object to make it look more like this. That's the question you ask yourself whenever you're modeling. All right, so first of all, you notice that there's like a groove in the center of this, too, that makes it look like an hourglass, and also the top or the upper part of this top part looks like a cone. Okay, so how do we achieve that? And also these there are small tiny grooves at the grip here. All right, so how do we achieve all those? Also likewise the cap. To do that, we need edges around that region so that we can manipulate those edges. Okay, and to add edges on your object, to add an edge ring around the object, there's a shortcut key for that, and the shortcut key is Ctrl R. Okay, now notice there's like a highlighted ring around my object. Now this ring is not a permanent because I've not clicked to make it permanent. It's just previewing how it will look like when I do click. Okay, so I can add ring at whichever way I like. So you can just hover your mouse over however the ring will satisfy you. So this is how I would like the ring to be. So I can just click, and the ring will, when I click once, the ring will actually appear, but you still be following my mouse to know which level I would like the ring to be. So if you want the ring to be at the middle, exact middle, you can just right click and it will snap back to the middle. Okay, all right. Or if you want to move it to a particular point, you just move your mouse over there and you click, and it will apply there. So now we've added a ring, and now that we added a ring, what we need to do is, like, you need to scale down this ring to make it look like an hourglass, this dense effect. Okay, to make it look like an hourglass. Now I've clicked out and the whole ring has been deselected. And how do I select the ring again? I can start selecting it one by one, and to select more than one thing, you hold shift and keep selecting. Okay, keep selecting. And if you're wondering that this will take a long time, you're right. It's actually very tedious, and so there's another shortcut key to make it easier. Okay. All right, shortcut key to select the whole ring at the same time is you hold Alt. Let me click out to deselect everything. You hold Alt, and then you click any of these edges around that goes around the ring. Okay, hold Alt. You can see I held Alt and click any of the edges, and it will automatically select the ring. Okay, the whole ring. So you don't need to be selecting one by one. Imagine you had a very big shape and you have to like 300 edges or 3,000 edges, for example. You won't have the luxury of time to be selecting those one by one. All right, so let's go to. So what we'll have to do is to scale this down. But if I should scale this down now, it will look very much not like a reference here. Okay, so what do? Let me Ctrl Z to undo that. I need to add 2 more rings above and underneath this. Okay, so how did you remember how we added this ring? Ctrl R to add the ring, and it's previewing to add the ring here, but I want the ring to be closer to this. So when I click once, I'll bring the ring down somewhere around here and click again. Okay, so I'll do the same thing for a ring underneath this center ring. So Ctrl R to add the ring. Right, it's previewing the ring. I click and I drag the mouse somewhat here. I'm just eyeballing it for now. We're not too concerned about the accuracy for now, just the technique. Okay, all right, so I'll just click to add this around here. So now when I scale this middle one, these rings will act as the edge to prevent the whole thing from scaling down like an hourglass. So I told you, remember to select the whole ring is you hold Alt and you click any of the edges. So now if I scale this down, you can see that we have a yo-yo looking object or an hourglass looking object that looks more like this. Okay, good. Now we have done the center. To create the cube on the cone on top, what we do, we select the entire face of the top, and to do that we can come into face select mode. Notice that when I was in edge select mode, the only things I could select on this object were the edges. Alright, and that's how it works. So when you're in edge select mode, you can only select the edges of the object. When you're in face select mode, you can only select the faces of the object. When you're in vertex select mode, you can only select the vertices of the object. Okay, and the same rule applies if you want to select multiple vertices. Just hold shift and you keep selecting as much as you want to. Okay, and then to transform those, you just the same transform rules for rotating, scaling, and everything. Scale, you can scale this exactly. All right, so but what if you don't, you are selecting between edges and faces at the same time very frequently, and you don't want to come here and be selecting it all the time? There's still a short way of doing that. You can actually just be in multiple select face modes at the same time. Thus you have your vertex selected at the currently, and you can actually hold shift and select your edge too. So that means by now you'll be able to select both edges and vertices. Okay, you notice that I selected an edge. Okay, and I can also select a single vertex. Just go to the point and select this. So I can select both edges and vertices at the same time. You can do that for all. You can just select everything, so you never actually have to go here. Now, reason why personally it's a matter of choice. Honestly, personally I don't really select all of them at the same time, because it might be a little bit stressful. Say I want to select just this vertex and I'm zoomed out. For example, if I click now and I zoom in, I was not able to select the vertex. I only selected this. My mouse accidentally select the edge. So you have to be specific. And sometimes I may actually want to select the face, or maybe you want to select this face, but your mouse is close to a vertex. You need to select something else. So that's why I just usually just have only one turned on at the same time. So now I can only select the vertex and stuff. It's really about preference actually. So it's not a big deal. All right. So that being said, you can follow this technique to create another another ring around this. You can create another ring. Okay, I'll show you a faster method of creating the water bottle. So create another ring, right click to leave the ring here. Let's go into edge selecting mode. Okay, edge. Okay, good. Now we notice that there's a cone like shape here, so at the top. So to create the cone like shape, we select the entire top, and to select an entire ring, you hold Alt like I said, remember, and you click on any of the edges that is bounded by that bounds the ring. Okay, and you notice that I selected the entire ring on top. Okay, so to do that, you can just scale that down, and we have our water bottle. You notice this water bottle is looking very fat. You can actually just scale it down. It's not a big deal actually. So we can, if you want to make the water bottle slimmer, you can just select everything. A is to select everything, remember, A to select everything in your scene, and then you can scale it down. Now this is a trick. You can scale it down, everything down, on the X and Y axis, and leaving only the Z axis, or you can actually scale only the Z axis and leave the X and Y axis. Okay, and to do that, if you want to exclude a particular axis, meaning you want to scale on two axes at the same time simultaneously while leaving out one axis, what you do is you press the shortcut key. Let's say you're scaling now, you press S to scale. Notice I can scale, make it bigger, make it smaller, make it bigger, make it smaller, and then you click on the axis that you are excluding. Yeah, you hold shift and you press the axis that you're excluding. So shift, and I'm excluding Y axis, so shift Y. Okay, sorry, I'm excluding Z axis, my bad. So scale and shift Z is the axis I'm excluding. Notice that the X and Y axis are highlighted down. So when you scale, it's not increasing, it's not reducing the height, it's only increasing and reducing the wideness. Okay, good. So let me just make it a little bit, I think something like this is okay. So it looks a little bit more like a bottle. Alright, so we're getting there gradually. Now there's something else in Blender that will make your work several times faster. Okay, and it's called extrude. And extrude, what extrude does is literally, like the name implies, it projects another a geometry out of another geometry. Okay, so this is a geometry, this object is a geometry, and to extrude, you project another geometry out of the current geometry, and it's worked by the base face from the surface area that you have selected. So if I want to project a cylinder out of this now, I can just select this top face. Sorry, let me go to face select mode. Select this face, right? I have selected the flat face, and I will now extrude, and the shortcut key for extrude is E. Okay, you can just tap E to extrude. You can see that it does. By default, bear this in mind, by default your extrude will actually project out of the normal to that face. Now a normal is, if you let me remind you from your basic mathematics, your high school mathematics, normals is basically in an imaginary line that is 90 degrees to a particular face, that is perpendicular, directly perpendicular to a particular face. Okay, so extrude has brought, you can see what extrude does, it's projected a face, a volume out of a particular face. Okay, so let me project by another from here. You can see that this line is actually not flat, its shaft is slanted. Okay, so if I should extrude this now, tap E to extrude, you can see that it's projecting by the normal, which is perpendicular to the face. Alright, so let me Ctrl Z to remove all that. Now I notice that before we achieve this, we're just kind of adding edges, trying to scale the edges down, do that. But there's a faster way to create this object. Okay, there's a faster way to create this object, and to do that, let me delete everything in our scene. Let me X to delete. Notice I snap back to object mode to delete. Okay, you can actually delete in edit mode too, but if you delete, the object itself is not deleted. It's just as if you deleted all the faces and vertices that are visible. So the object is still kind of there. Let me do that so you see. X delete. Now I can't see anything, but as far as Blender is concerned, you are still in edit mode of a cylinder, but there's no cylinder. Alright, there's nothing there. So you're still in edit mode of a mesh. Okay, so you can still go into object mode, but you still can't see anything because you deleted all the faces and edges as you did. This is bad practice because there will be objects that will be calculated by your computer and you really can't see anything and it really doesn't change anything on your screen. So it's bad practice. So you really want to, if you are deleting an entire object, you go into edit the object mode rather and you delete it. Okay, so this now so this is good practice. All right. Okay, so the faster way I'm talking about, let's add in the shape, our base shape that looks basically like our reference what we're trying to create. And to do that, we press Shift A to add in a cylinder. Okay, we'll still start with a cylinder. Let's start with a cylinder, and now it's going to be edit mode. Now we'll be using only two tools, and that is the extrude and the scale, and we'll be able to achieve this. All right, we use only the extrude and the scale, and I'll be able to achieve this very much faster than if we had just add loop codes and add this, add that, add whatever. It will be faster, just trust me. So first of all, let's try to shorten this cylinder. Okay, you'll get why in a second. So let's select the face, the top face, and we can just bring it down a bit. Let's bring it down. I'm trying to make it as short as the distance from the lowest part to the first groove. Okay, so I can just eyeball it. Let me maybe increase it a bit. Let's look at the original reference. Yeah, this is the original reference. So yeah, I think about that height is okay. Okay, so let's go into our front view to see this better. Now what do? We extrude. Okay, we extrude. All right, so let's make it about a little bit high and select. Now I've extruded this, but we'll still have the face selected, so we can just scale this down a little bit, just a little bit. Okay, we extrude it again, just ever so slightly, and then we scale it out a little bit. Notice the shortcut keys I'm pressing just the S and E. All right, good. So now we have the first groove here. The way this will work is as if we are growing it from the bottom all the way to the top. Okay, so we have our first groove here, and we'll do the same thing for for each of the grooves that we encounter along the way. All right, so the top has been deselected now, so let me select it back again. So continue with our growth. Okay, it's kind of like how a 3D printer works, if those of us that know what a 3D printer is. Okay, so let me go back into front view so you can see this better. Now extrude again a little bit more this time for the grips, and now extrude a little more again, and you click this to make it permanent, and then you scale in slightly inward. You extrude again, you click, and then you scale out slightly. Okay, just eyeballing it, don't worry about its accuracy now, and extrude it high, a little bit upward. Again, we've made the second indents now, so we extrude again. We just repeat this process, extrude it upward slightly again. So just repeat the process. What I'm doing now is just repeating the same thing. Extrude it. Take note of how many grooves we have here. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we have 4 grooves here. Okay, remember whenever I click out, everything will be deselected, so let me just select this back. Okay, so this place is too short, let me make it higher a bit. Okay, so we can extrude again, scale it slightly, and extrude again, scale it out this time, and then extrude. Okay, this is the last one. Good. So we've gotten the base, the bottom half of the bottle. Okay, always check your references to know that you are doing the right thing. We've gotten the bottom part of the bottle. Now what we are going to do is this major center indent. Okay, and if you notice from the original bottle, there's like even at the hourglass constricted point, there's still a bit of small bulge there. Okay, so will still account for that too. So let's select. Always make sure that before you extrude, you have the face selected. Okay, if you don't have anything selected, just know nothing will extrude. Your nothing will happen. Okay, so just select the face that you want to extrude. Let's go into the front numpad 1, and in case you're wondering how I'm able to move this, how I'm able to navigate like this, if you want to pan, you hold your shift down and you click the middle mouse button to pan. Now if you don't have your shift selected and you click the middle mouse button, it will orbit. Okay, and that's how it will like show the 3D view will be just orbiting around like the name implies. Alright, in case you didn't know that. Alright, so go back to 1. Now we're making the center part, so we extrude, and this time we make it a little bit longer. Okay, and now we scale inward. Notice the constriction is a little bit deeper. Okay, so now to make that small bulge, don't worry about the fact that it's a little bit, the edges are a little bit sharp and jagged. In next classes I'll show you how to make everything smoother. Okay, but just ignore that for now. So we'll just create the bulge. The bulge will be a sharp bulge for now. So we can just extrude little bit to this height, and then we scale it out, and we extrude again and scale it in. So we've created the bulge, and now we extrude to make it bigger. And good, we've made the constriction. Okay, so that's all about the constriction. Okay, you can see that our shape is gradually resembling this. Okay, so now we continue. What we're trying to do now is the label part, where the label is here, and then we make the cone and then the cap, and that's all we're done. It's as simple as that. Okay, so we extrude the label part. I think it's about this height is okay. Okay, and now we extrude again for the cone part. Let's just get the height first. It's about this high. We'll scale it down. It's a little bit too tall for me, so we can just bring it down with the mouse, but with the Z-axis. Make sure you're clicking on the Z-axis, or just grab it and tap Z to bring it down to constrain to the Z-axis. Okay, so now that we have this, we've done most of our bottle, we've constructed most of the bottle, and we can extrude the cap. Okay, so extrude, E to extrude the cap. We can just bring it out a bit. Notice that the cap has like a little bit of extrusion, then has like this flat disc that goes outward before the cap seal and then the cap itself. Alright, so we'll do that soon. So to do that, we just extrude. Now this is a trick. When you extrude, I've not clicked anything, so it's still following my mouse right now, but if you right click, it will snap to the initial point. Now the extrusion is there, but you just can't see it because it's sitting at the exact edge of where it started from. Okay, so if you deselect this now, you have two edges of the same point, and that's the bad practice in modeling. Okay, because the increase in the amount of edges, note this and note this very well. The increase in the amount of vertices, the edges, the number of shapes, polygons, exactly. The number of polygons that are in your shape will increase how much of calculation that your computer needs to calculate the geometry of the object, and which will ultimately increase the size of the file. Okay, always hold this in mind. So it is good practice to use as little poly as possible, as little amount of polygons as possible. So you don't want to have two edges sitting on the same plate, on the same point. Okay, so but what we have is it has snapped back to the same point. So the reason why we did that is because we are going to scale it again. So let's scale it now, and notice that it's scaling, and we can just click it out. Now you see that it's as if there's a bit of a glitching here, and that's because two faces are on the same point. Whenever I see that, I know that there are two faces that are on the same plane. Okay, so I'm not worried about that because we're going to fix that in a minute. We'll just extrude upward again, slightly, ever so slightly. Now I've made that flat grooving looking thing. Okay, so let's come back here. So now we can extrude again, the same trick again, extrude, and right click to snap back to the same origin. Remember, don't click out, else you lose the shape. Okay, you lose the selection rather. So you scale inward, okay, and you scale inward. Now you can extrude the cap seal. This is the cap seal. Okay, notice there's a capsule, and you notice there's like a bit of gap between the capsule and the cap itself. Okay, so we can just account for that by making a small indent. So the same trick, snap back to the same position, right click, then you scale slightly inward, slightly, ever so slightly, then extrude again. You can click now, extrude. I remember, if you're extruding on the same plane, you just snap back to the, if you're scaling on the same plane, just right click to snap back to the same point, then you can now scale. Okay, let me go to the front view so we can see what we're doing very well. Okay, so now extrude the cap itself. Okay, let me zoom out, grab it on Z axis to make it a little bit taller. Good, and that's all about our bottle. We've created the bottle, the water bottle, and notice that the only two I was using was extrude and scaling. Literally, I was only using extrude and scaling, and that's a very fast way. So you notice that I was able to do this much faster than if I was just adding loop cuts and start to chip it out one by one. It's a little bit more tedious then. So in the principle of modeling, your workflow should likely be something that will make your work faster, because everything is all about time. You can spend 2 years to model something so small, or you can spend 2 minutes. It's all about, and your clients will likely don't have that luxury of time, and your skill as a modeler will be how fast you are able to model with accuracy. Okay, so you always look for the fastest methods to do things. Alright, so this is how we've created this bottle. I've created the bottle here. We can go back to object mode to view it. Alright, so that's all about this. And in your assignment, I already sent documents for the assignment. This is what you'll be creating, and the details are there. You'll be creating it in you'll be sending a screenshot of this. Also, you'll be saving the Blender file. And let me show you how you do what I'm expecting you to send to me in the assignment. Okay, so to save the Blender file, just press Ctrl S, and that's default for basically anything on Windows. Ctrl S to save it, to bring out some options here. So you just navigate to wherever you want to save, maybe the desktop, for example. You want to save this to desktop, and now you save you can just edit the file, because by default it will save as untitled, but you want to save it as something meaningful. And now this is how I want you to save your project file. Okay, you save it as project 1 space 1, then space, then dash space, then the name of the project, which it's actually water bottle, so we save this as water bottle. Okay, you have to save it exactly like this. If you don't, I may penalize you a bit when grading your work, okay, your exercise. So just press enter, and since we're saving to desktop, can just, but before I save that, you have to save everything. You have to put all your assignments in the same folder. Okay, so I can, if I click this now, it will create it will save this in my desktop. But before you do that, you can just create a new folder, and you come here to create a new folder. Now you rename the folder. The new folder should be your full name. Okay, it's very important. The folder will be your full name. Let's say your name is Jeffrey, for example. Jeffrey, sorry, I don't know how to spell Jeffrey. E-R-Y, I believe. I don't know. So let's say your name is Jeffrey James. Okay, so this is how you can press enter to create the folder Jeffrey James. Now you go into that folder and you save your Blender file. Alright, now you take a screenshot on Windows. I'm not sure how to do that on Mac, but you can just Google it. It's not a big deal. To take a screenshot, just press Windows and your screenshot button on your keyboard. So alright, now I've created a screenshot right now. You created a screenshot while you are in a solid mode. You create another screenshot while you are in material view. Notice how I'm getting into these different views. You hold Z, and then you hover your mouse over to the points the view that you want, and then you release Z. Okay, now while you're on wireframe, you still create another screenshot, and then you go again to rendered view. While you're rendered view, you create another screenshot. Okay, so you have 4 screenshots in total, and all those screenshots navigate to wherever this your computer saves its screenshots to. Okay, give me a second. Yeah, so just go to your screenshots. Okay, and mine will likely be the last one here. Okay, yeah, so these are the screenshots. So you select all the screenshots here, all the 4 screenshots of different mode, and then you copy them, and then at your desktop, where is this folder creator? I'm looking for the folder creator. That's the Jeffrey James. Okay, I'm officially blind. Wow, I really can't find it. Okay, just look for the folder. Let me just, I don't know, I can't find the Jeffrey James. Okay, yeah, it's here, sorry. Okay, so you open your folder, the Jeffrey James folder, and you paste it here, Ctrl V, or just right click and paste. Okay, so once you've done that, you just make this a compressed folder, and then this is what you upload to the drive that is provided for you. So this is what I want you to submit. This is exactly how I want you to submit the assignment. Alright, so that's all about today's class. Let me go back into SolidView. That's all about today's class, and in next class we'll talk more in depth about modeling, and I'll teach you some more techniques in modeling. Okay, have a lovely day. Goodbye. I remember my name is Mayokun. Once again, Mayokun Alemika. You can call me Mayo. Have a lovely day.